So, why did you become a divorce coach, and why might someone else want to become a divorce coach?
Well, my decision to become a divorce coach really came from my own lived experience going through a separation and divorce. I went through what would be called a very difficult, high conflict divorce close to a decade ago. And it was a matter that kind of wound its way through multiple court systems and multiple jurisdictions. And, at first I was represented by counsel, but then as matters progressed, I became financially exhausted and I had to self represent. And when it came time to realize that, this matter was in fact going to trial, it wasn't settling, I took advantage of what was called unbundled legal services, which was relatively new at the time and almost unheard of, but found counsel who was able to support me through that process. I would say maybe 20%. I took on about the other 80 myself. But it was really going through that practice, living through that experience, and as I like to call it, walking through the fire, that made me recognize that there was not only an access to justice issue, but there was also a significant gap between the client and the lawyer that I felt was not effectively filled because what really financially exhausted me so quickly out of the gate was that I only knew that if I had a question about certain things, I could reach out to my lawyer, but a lot of these things didn't require legal advice. It was more guidance, information, things to give me clarity. And that's why after my matter resolved and I had time to heal, to reflect back, and to look at that experience, is that there must be something out there to bridge that gap between the lawyer and the client so that the client not only feels more supported, but any spend that they do have on their matter is spent in the right place. So they're spending it on a lawyer when they need legal advice, but they have another professional that they can work with when they don't need legal advice, but they need the support to navigate the process more empowered with clarity and confidence.
Well, that's such a
And
great point because, I know even with my clients, for example, I've spent a lot of time acquiring skills and things that beyond my legal skills that, could be considered coaching skills. And I have a personality, I think, that lends itself to the coaching aspect of things. But the reality is, when clients come to me, they're hiring me as a lawyer, and it's at my lawyer rate, which is generally
mhm,
much higher than the average rate for a divorce coach. And so, even though I might be able to support the client in some of those ways more than some other lawyers might be able to, the reality is they could still exhaust a lot of money
mhm.
using me for non-legal things where they could use someone like yourself or another divorce coach and save that money so that, down the road when they still need a lawyer, they have funds to do that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that when you take more of a strategic approach, and as you mentioned, use your lawyer effectively where their rate gives you benefit, and utilize a coach more effectively where the lower rate gives you benefit, it just allows you to budget the process a bit more effectively, with the goal being to see it through to resolution with support, with that professional support and guidance that you need. And it's interesting, but even when I talk to lawyers out there, I hear that frustration of, I started with a client, we got about halfway through, three-quarters of the way through, and then they stopped, not because the working relationship ended, but because they were financially exhausted. So you now have a client left feeling unsupported and lost, but you have a lawyer left feeling like they painted three-quarters of the room and they didn't finish it. And now they have to sit back and watch as it's
Yeah.
incomplete. So there's no completion, there's no fulfillment. And it's how do we get people from that point of surviving to the finish line where they can thrive and they can move on with their life, but without losing the shirt off their back?